Hello and welcome to another episode of the Midierror Meets podcast, the monthly music podcast where we talk to a wide range of people from the music world. This month I'm speaking to Si Connelly, who is a singer-songwriter based on the south coast of England. Si's been signed to a number of huge labels, including Sony and EMI. He's got an incredibly soulful voice and has released an unbelievable amount of material over the years. So I caught up with Si earlier on this year to talk about his career, and the first question I asked was about his musical beginnings.
We started really early, man, like I needed an escape, so I think I was around 3 or 4, I imagine, you know. That was back in the day when you used to have, you know, the Fisher Price had that range, the range that's now out at Urban Outfitters and all those sort of places for like 40 quid. But back then, you know, they had the xylophone and they had the record player and just little things. But they were kind of the first instrument kind of practical things to sort of engage with at that age. And then Michael Jackson was kind of around that time everywhere, you know. My dad's a DJ, so that was one of the first things that I remember really was him kind of. Well, it's easy to remember because he'd have to drag me to work a lot, so I'd be in the DJ booth underneath the booth, you know.
No way.
In my pajamas, sort of until sort of 2 or 3, and that was at sort of 5 or 6 years old. So I remember the Doors and the Beatles but hearing sort of the early indie stuff when they used to go to record stores like Art Price and places like that, and it would just be called indie or it would be called export or whatever, and it would be all this American stuff. So I remember that stuff, but my first, he played Cocktail Twins and he played Brian Eno and he played a lot of that stuff. But I think the first thing that really bit me fully was Michael Jackson's stuff. That and the Wizard of Oz, I think, you know, because I used to sort of run around and kind of practice all the dances and do all that sort of stuff. But Michael Jackson was the first thing that showed me an escape, like a moment of wonder, I suppose, where you can go, wow, there's something else out there. People forget now because he's obviously got such a divisive reputation now, but at the time he really was, you know, just from another world, you know. And I would meticulously, I had a lot of sort of weird stuff growing up that was going on, so I needed something that I could focus on, and I think that I didn't even know that was happening, but I needed something to focus on, so I would intensely just watch and study the Michael Jackson videos every week that would come out, and I practiced the dancing on there to the point of obsession. I'm not just saying like most kids, I'm talking about kind of like obsessive sort of you know, Billy Elliot sort of vibe, you know. I'm just literally absolutely like honing it to the point where I think by the time I was sort of 8 or 9 I was doing exhibitions and stuff, like live stuff like that.
Wow.
Performance stuff. And so dance and that came first, and maybe that's why my voice kind of sustained that kind of high range, because it went all the way through that, you know.
Right.
Yeah, and next stage after that. So that's really early, you know. My parents, they met, probably the first and the last time that they really actually met. But they went to see Japan, band with Mick Kahn, about 1981, about May 1981. We went to see Japan. And then my dad said, oh, you know, I thank Japan for you, you know, being born and stuff. I say I thank laybys. You know, because if it wasn't for the motorway lay-by, I really wouldn't have had the chance, do you know what I mean?
A combination of the two.
It's a combo of the two, but yeah, so yeah, he was always absolutely just a kind of, my dad was always a kind of god with regards to music, very sort of renowned as well around the era I was in.
And were you there like picking records out for him? Did you
I'd be there.
A job to play while you were there?
I'd be there. He had a night called Heaven and Hell at Gas Nightclub in Cheltenham. Cheltenham's where I grew up, in the Cotswolds, and it sounds so regal, doesn't it, in Regency, but believe me, the bit I grew up was not on the website. And so anyway, it was a weird one because I didn't live with him. I lived with my mum. I lived with my mum in the week, and we lived in kind of a lot of weird places, sort of homeless shelters and sort of drug houses and places like that. So it was pretty edgy, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'd live with my dad on the weekend, you know. And the weekends obviously when he was DJing, and he did a night called Heaven and Hell, and he did a night called the Continental. There was a place in Cheltenham called the Continental. But he was just really, you know, he looked kind of very enigmatic, long hair and kind of just real. He was kind of like the first almost famous person I knew, if that makes sense. Even though he wasn't, you know, famous in the world of today, but to a kid, you know. So I was always known as DJ Johnny's son, you know. And when I got cocky enough around the age of 13 and 14 when Oasis came out, I was like, you're going to be known as Si Connelly's dad pretty soon. But actually it turned out we're both completely unknown, so it's fine. We can walk the fields of the Cotswolds perfectly unfeathered without any problems.
Yeah.
But he was my first influence, yeah, and then Supergrass and bands like that kind of came along.
Yeah, I saw you mentioned I Should Coco as like one of your...
Yeah, it was just like an arrow, that song, that album. Again, like that, he introduced a lot of this stuff, you know. I would hear it, so he would never be like, he's very kind of, I don't know, kind of wise in a way. He knew if he came in and said, you know, listen to this, I probably wouldn't. But he'd play like Grace, Buckley's Grace, and he played Supergrass, and I don't know what song it was. I think probably All Right or something like that. I'd like to know the first track. But when I got, you know, the album just completely spoke to me at like 13 years old. And it was the transition from getting into music, making music, rather than dancing around, you know, jigging about. I did a bit of acting in between those two things. So I did dancing, then a bit of sort of the acting stuff. And then I kind of got very violent for a while and then got into music. And he gave me this record, and he had vinyls, you know. I think that might have even been a CD though, the version he showed me. But the back cover of I Should Coco, anyway, Supergrass's I Should Coco, is just Gaz, Mickey and Danny standing in a dressing room. They're standing in a dressing room of a venue. Someone like me at that age would never have known what a dressing room was. I mean, the DJ booths and stuff didn't have those sort of things. So that just was like literally a window into a world that I was like fascinated by. And I just became very obsessed with it. I kind of locked myself away. Like I did with the dance thing, I earlier on as a kid, I just locked myself away, you know, for about 6 months. I picked a guitar up and started writing straight away with that. And I just learned 2 chords or 3 chords, and then taught myself off books and stuff like that, you know. Didn't have any lessons or anything like that. So
yeah.
And then really just off ear and listen to that and that record. And I saw them live a lot of times as well, which was kind of amazing, because they were only about 5 or 6 years older than me at that time, but the songs are still amazing, you know. I still just can't believe how good those songs were.
Yeah, I think they have a lot of like fun in the lyrics. There's a lot of fun and adventure and misdemeanors and stuff that are, you know, like, yeah, absolutely. I think their lyrics were like for teenage or for, you know, late teens that were like, I listened in college to Supergrass, and it was like fun, like Caught by the Fuzz.
Absolutely, yeah.
And, you know, songs like that are like, they're brilliant.
They're brilliant, and those records, even the records that came after them, were just so different. Richard III off the second album, just was so different to anything else that's out there. I mean,
weirdly, I DJ'd and played Richard III, and I cleared the dance floor with that track, and I still to this day don't know how the fuck that happened.
Do you know what? It doesn't surprise me. No, it doesn't surprise me, because it's one of them tracks that's like, you probably would have had to take Primal Scream off for that, you know, and it doesn't have a dance beat to it. It's so unusual. That was the great thing about Coldplay. Not Coldplay, Supergrass. Coldplay are great too. But yeah, so that was a good thing about them. But I sort of, you know, I just looked for inspiration anywhere I could get it at that time. And, you know, the American thing was great, Nirvana and stuff, but that spoke to me a bit later. But like at the time, you know, I was sort of very British, you know what I mean? I needed something that was, and Oxford was only really down the road, you know, from me. So I loved Radiohead and all them bands, and Strangelove, and there's lots of sort of bands that didn't really kind of last the test of time, I suppose, but Supergrass are one of the ones that just did, I just think I saw them, first time I saw them live was at the Astoria in London. I must have been about 14, 15. I was being crushed at the front. But
it's the best
my dad was
be,
stood there as cool as a cucumber as always, but I was just being crushed. But it was amazing, you know. It's just what a great introduction into a world that I just had to be a part of. I started touring. I started playing live and touring instantly, you know, 13, 14 years old.
Did you really? Wow.
Yeah, I just had to get out there straight away. The first couple of bands and stuff. Weirdly enough, years later, I was when I first got a deal, and I sat there, and I didn't have any real experience of like how to talk to these people. I had a manager that just told me to be as rude as possible, and I was like, okay. I had this book I bought from like Waterstones.
As rude as possible.
Yeah,
that seems like a very
because I was too polite and stuff, and he's like, look, this is a time of like Liam and Noel and all that. So you had to, and they were all courting you. So I think I met loads of labels. There was a lot of labels interested at the time. So it was just like, and after a while, you start getting annoyed with these suits coming in, you know. But I remember anyway when I finally got the deal, and I had this book I bought from Waterstones. I think it was sort of how to get a record deal, how to be successful or something. I'm trying to get a refund on it now. but I had this book. And it literally was like a Bible, and it told you everything you needed to know, and the terminology of how to like basically blag it in a meeting with these, you know, MDs of these big companies. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so I'm sat in one of these meetings, and I'm trying to reference back to some of the things I'd read in this book and highlighted, and you know, when they're talking about points and things like that, producer points and things like that, I was kind of thinking, okay, I do know what I'm talking about. So. And at that point, I got past the rudeness. I didn't have to be so solitary. They said, "Who do you want to make your record?" And who do you want to make your album? So I was only about 21 or something like that. Mm-hmm. And I just didn't know any names. I knew Ethan Johns as producer, and I knew Sam Williams, who produced I Should Coco,
right,
Supergrass, and all the Supergrass stuff. So
maybe Quincy Jones.
I thought, yeah, I knew Quincy, yeah, but I thought maybe he might not return our call. So, and I thought, well, Ethan John, so I mentioned that, you know, the only producers that I really kind of revered and I love are Ethan Johns, who at that time had done a lot of the Ryan Adams stuff, like the Heartbreaker and stuff like that. That's kind of how I knew him. And the son of Glyn Johns and that, who did the Beatles stuff.
Is he?
Yeah, so Glyn Johns worked on the White Album, I think, and a few other things.
And he worked with The Who as well.
Yeah, he was a great engineer, wasn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, because I interviewed his understudy, or his...
Oh wow! Yeah,
Prodigy, who is a guy called John Astley, who's like
John,
a mastering engineer, and yeah, he took over the Who sessions from Glyn, because I think Glyn fell out with the band at some point.
That doesn't surprise me. Yeah.
So then they were like, we need a producer. John, will you do it? And then he stepped in and produced the Who's Next, or one of the.
That's it, because he had this drum technique, didn't he, Glyn Johns, where he just record the drums with 2 mics or something, or 3 mics. I saw a masterclass with him. Like I don't normally go in for those masterclass things, but he was one I was specifically interested in going to, and didn't mention his son at all, which I thought was strange. He didn't mention his son, you know, made Kings of Leon and Ryan Adams records, and he's a great artist as well, Ethan Johns. But so anyway, going back to that, I mentioned Ethan Johns and I mentioned Sam Williams, and then luckily enough, I managed to get Sam Williams to make the first attempt at my debut album, basically. So I spent a year with Sam, and that was great, you know, getting to ask him about what's it like to make, what's Gaslight, what's it like to do this, what's it that, and there was even a moment where he was going to try and get Danny to play drums on one of my tracks and things like that. So it's just the weird full circle of these things. It's kind of like, wow, I'm in with the guy that made the record that made me want to start doing this stuff. And I'm on tape, so I probably shouldn't say it, but he was a bit of a nut job, you know. I don't know what he was going for at the time, but it was typical, you know, the stuff you'd imagine. I imagine it probably was much more nowadays. I probably think back and think, he's probably thinking, God, I'm in with this kid that just, I can't bother to be here. This is his job.
Told to be rude to everybody.
He's told to be rude to everyone. He's rifling through my stuff. So I imagine, after someone like that making great records with Supergrass, to working with people like me, an unknown kind of guy. About the time I didn't see it like that, you know. At the time I was like, I mean, we got on great. It was still great, but it was just, oh, where's Sam? Oh, he's in that field over there meditating, talking to our sheep. And I would be like, okay, cool. But you know what? I think they probably needed it after working on my record.
Yeah, I think you never know what people are going through, do you? On the surface, we're all like these sort of hardened individuals, but deep down, maybe something's happened at home, or something minor's happened, or something happened in that morning, and we can all be, I think...
Well, he's an artist, you know, he's kind of... He gets thrown around too much, but he's a genius, really, do you know what I mean? A lot of his ideas and his musicality, and he was in a band as well. So you just... I think the thing is that the hard part is when we always view everything through our small window into a big world, you know, and sometimes it takes time to be able to sort of start to sort of appreciate from all the different angles, you know. And I did, but the best part about it was just constantly asking about people. He probably got sick of me asking him about that. But I mean, he was like, I had to look more way to record vocals, to write the songs and stuff like that. But I mean, if you listen to that record now, the Usher Coco album, it's like freakishly strange because it sounds like it's from another world. But if you really listen to it, it really is just 3 guys in a room. I think their brother played as well, so it's 3 or 4 guys, and effectively it's pretty much a live record. It's very clever how the little interludes in between each song and how the additional productions and the way the vocals have been treated have made that record sound as strange and as from another universe as it actually is, because it really does just it just sounds like a record. It's live, you know. I think the Gaz worked with him a bit later on. He worked on it for the money as well. Yeah, he was those records were only the first records that kind of got me going. It's funny that the things that sort of are so big in our sort of world, you know, we've got things like they kind of get hidden away because they don't conform or they don't necessarily pay back into the thing. But yeah, I think computer games are getting insanely good. The VR stuff now and all that stuff is insane. I just deliberately don't play them because they're so good that they're so much better than real life. What would be the point? What's the point in getting dressed? There's no point in going outside because, you know, here I can fly, you know. Whereas you go outside and, you know, realise it's all walking.
Yeah, or like someone calls you a dickhead on the street.
Yeah, you know,
like,
you can't do anything about it. You know, you can't do anything about it. But in the computer world, you can.
Yeah,
and it's become not only that, but the innovation that's happened in that world. I wish music had innovated in that way. In fact, you think of all the mediums now. I think books got it right with the digital world. Books kind of seem to have done all right. You can't really buy a page, you know what I mean, or you can't really buy a chapter. You have to buy the book, you know.
Yeah.
The physicality of the book is still kind of paramount, even though the Kindles and stuff do really cool stuff. And games, great. I think that music is the only one that has just... I don't understand really how we've even accepted this is the deal. I think maybe even movies. I did read a stat that said cinema. Apparently I say that word really funny. Cinema.
No.
Do I say that funny? Cinema. So apparently I sound cinema. I sound posher than I am. Apparently I always sound posher than I am. People say that. They meet me, they're disappointed. Apparently the viewing numbers are up, which I can't believe. I mean, up more than they were back in 1990s or something. I just don't believe that.
I guess there's more marketing and promotion, so whether that works on the mainstream films, I wouldn't say so because it's really expensive. No one, you know, I mean, I'm a huge fan of cinema and world cinema, and I buy DVDs like no one else does that anymore, but I still do. But yeah, most people just say, "Oh, just watch it on Netflix or just download it off a torrent website." And I wonder how the film industry is still going because 90% of the people I know just download films. And
I don't know who's hanging out in cinemas. I think you go to cinemas now and you realise that the confectionery bit and the hot dogs are getting bigger and bigger. People are just there because they want to eat. It's got nothing to do. They like dark rooms and food. It's got really nothing to do with what's on. In fact,
there's actually no film playing. There's just sit there and eat loads of popcorn.
A few years back, I had this. When I was kind of sort of didn't really have anywhere to live, I got this. I found that I figured out the cheapest way to be indoors for a long period of time without being asked to leave by security was to get one of those Cineworld Pass things. So I remember just sitting there all day just watching these films I'd seen at eating times and writing songs and stuff. It was just easier to be inside. For like 15 quid a month. I was
That's
like,
pretty good, yeah.
Costing me 70p a day or something.
Nice, man. Yeah, I think just going back to like audio books and music, the way that they are set up now, you're right, like the books have evolved, like having audio books. A lot of people listening to audio books in the car or whatever and on the move. And you can download PDFs of books, so distribution costs for them are really small. Yeah. And it is funny how like Napster sort of and all the torrent sharing websites sort of pulled the rug underneath the music industry in the late 90s.
They got vilified for that, and I just found it insane that happened. I know that I'm going to probably get a lot of flack with people. The minute you put any opinion online, everyone just suddenly dimes on it, like as if you're not allowed to have an opinion about something. But I do think that those early touring websites, they got vilified a lot. You know, there was a lot of this kind of the collapse in the music industry, and it's all. I mean, come on, a few people could figure out how to actually get Definitely Maybe or whatever record or whatever movie on, but they're not that easy to figure out. Most people are sitting there thinking, I'm going to get a virus or something on my computer. So the idea that en masse, most of the audience for music are going to just get their music for free on these things was absurd. But what's even more absurd is that not only did they get vilified for it, the music industry also said, we're going to take that idea, by the way, and just run with it, and that's going to be the model, but we're going to have it under our world, you know. We're going to govern it under our side, because who pays for music now? Who really pays for media now? It's become drinking water, you know. It's tap water, you know.
I think the problem being when everyone starts giving away their music for free to get recognition or to be heard, then the value of what you're making goes down, doesn't it? Or the perceived value of
I think it does. I think the value of music is, I really do think the music industry has completely destroyed itself. I don't think it's, and in a weird way it's kind of created a whole new way of interacting with music, which in a sense is good. So it's kind of created some really good stuff. You know, people do engage with music more on a daily basis because it's there, but there's something about there was something about having to be a part of something, that having to lean in, that made you part of something, that made it had a value to it. Like nowadays, you're not part of anything. My thumbs are more part of it than I am. I'm flicking through, and also this idea that is really beneficial to independent artists is it? I mean, you go to see a show. I saw a show and there's a guy on stage and he's saying, come and get my singles out on Spotify next month. Come and listen to it for nothing. I mean, that record, it costs 20 grand, 10 grand to make an album and put it out, really, you know, maybe less, but not that much less, because you've still got to either learn how to produce it yourself on a laptop, you know, you've still got to mix it. And if your mixes aren't good, you've got to pay for mixing. Then you've got to do videos. Then you've got to sort of do all that stuff and pay for all that business. And by the time you actually get it out there, you're investing, the minimum your investment is $5 grand or something. And then it goes out and it doesn't really sell for anything. So, and it isn't really that you're going to benefit from like selling your music as much as streaming it goes. Streaming's perfectly fine as a medium. That is the medium now. That's offering people downloads and buying songs. It's just giving people a hassle in the world that's not. But we don't exist like that. So my problem isn't with streaming at all. My problem is with the network in which it's been set up. So, you know, most artists aren't getting much out of streaming. You know, we might be collecting sort of some fans or whatever, but we're not. It's not really set up. I mean, how can it be? How can it be distributed? How can that £10 a month or £7 a month be distributed into? And why should it be as well? Like, why should an artist like me get as much percentage wise as someone like Adele. It's absurd. It shouldn't. So it isn't like it's been set up badly because anyone's got an agenda as such. It's just that certain boxes haven't ever needed to be ticked. Like labels can kind of have make money as stakeholders because they can own shares in these streaming services. So they're not losing the same. But if, for instance, from an artist's point of view, if the only music you put out is listened to for free, it does change the paradigms. It doesn't like ruin music for you. It doesn't like I'm not sitting there going, oh, I didn't make 30 quid off my sales this month. I mean, it's not like I'm going to sell much anyway.
For the people listening to it either.
No, it actually makes it more accessible. But what it does do is it does change the paradigms of value. It's just because you're just basically releasing it's just content, which is fine but you put out more content. There is a cost to that. Like to create that content, there is a major cost from an artist's point of view to create that content, and so what you find is that it has a knock-on effect to the distribution and creative network, that side of it. So it becomes a kind of classism system where when people have have investment from their parents or some money, they can kind of afford to make more content, or like. Not all of them, but they can kind of afford to make more content and get it out there more regularly. Mm-hmm. When I say more regularly, I'm talking like a track every kind of 4 weeks, 2 to 4 weeks.
Yeah,
because you have to, and it isn't just music; it's videos and all sorts, and that stuff costs a lot of money to make. It's not just like these videos and these things appear because the idea is that we're all just hanging out, kind of in an Apple kind of world, drinking coffee and
just knocking out,
filming our mates skateboarding down the road, and then we've made this great video and it's gone viral and all that. It's just a load of rubbish. Most acts are making our music, we're putting it out, we're getting 12 likes on Facebook, and we are paying for Facebook ads, and we're building it slowly, and we're focused on our little steps, and those steps are massively important. But one of the doors that's massively narrowed to us is it's not that the sale of the music, it's the fact that there's so much information out there now, that there's so much noise, that to even stand a chance of getting above that noise, you either have to increase your volume of creation, which costs loads of money, or you have to increase the promotion of what you've created, which costs money. It does cost money. People say it's application, it's time. I'm starting to believe in like the opposite as being a really good approach. Like, don't promote it. Like artists like Burial, for example, or Banksy, the way that they approached their thing, it wasn't like there was no promotion really. It was like people came to find it because there was an enigma there. There wasn't much information out there. So like if someone tells you a story and they say, "Oh, I can't really say what happened," you just start to go crazy about all the amazing things that could have happened. And eventually, when you find out that story, you're like, "Oh, is that it?" But it's like a magic trick. So I think that actually the reverse is true. And I know from my friend's company, who's based in Brighton, he sells MIDI stuff, and I'm involved in that. He's always been a firm believer in doing no promotion, doing no marketing, and making people find him as being like the reward. That is it's a funny thing you say that, because that is after you go through that rat race of over promoting and overselling and getting everyone to try and do this and to try and do that, and after years it does get wearing for independent acts. And I say independent acts, I hate that word, but like just unknown acts basically. It does get wearing because they're jumping through these hoops. They feel that this is what you have to do, this is what it's all about. I've got to keep grinning, I've got to keep smiling, because it's all about everyone loving me and everyone thinking my life's great, and I'm networking, here's my business cards.
Yeah, like superficial.
Yeah, like and I think that they're thinking hopefully this will pay off, and I think deep down when they there are moments when they don't feel like it's paying off and it doesn't really work. But absolutely what you said a moment ago is really becoming much more true. It's in a sense how I'm trying to do what I'm doing. I mean, I don't have a major option to over promote because I can't afford to promote my records. So I mean that those are I have to work with the paradigms I have, and my paradigms are I can either like obliterate my fan base online with just constantly, like I'm a walking sandwich board, which I just refuse to do, because one, these people aren't necessarily my fans, they're like friends and they're people I know, so like, it's not really the market for it. Two, it's almost off-putting because it creates it almost demands a defensive response.
Yeah, if there's too
or
many
unfriend,
things happening. Yeah.
I would much prefer, and my whole campaign, in a sense, approach is, I want people to trip over it. It's only when they trip over it by themselves. All my kind of job is to sort of plant these little seeds, and they kind of have to grow them themselves, you know, if they want to. And it's only when people trip over it themselves that they really feel like they've discovered something, they have some ownership in it.
Yeah, I think that's what happened with Burial for a lot of people.
Yeah.
They felt like they'd discovered him.
And that's exactly how I approach my live stuff as well, because it was, I don't want to just, and going back slightly, it's the only way to really grow something properly from the ground up. Like, even after all the years I've been doing it, I had to sort of draw a line and go, right, I had to like build this slowly now. I had to think really small and not try to expect things to blow up or go viral or anything. It's much more about basically creating great stuff, great live performances, great records, and great content in a manageable way that doesn't kill me, that doesn't make me think I'm trying to keep up with the Joneses or whatever. But I have to have enough belief in what I'm doing to realise that people are going to trip over this. And that's how I want it to be. I want to be playing to 50 strangers, you know. I don't want to be playing necessarily to the people that know me all the time. I want to, it's the 2 or 3 that don't know who I am, because it's only when they trip over it that they feel like there's some ownership in there. And because that's the real reality of where we're at. And I think the more you do it, the more you realise there is no moment of realisation, there is no point of success. The success is the connection you have with the audience. It is like your friend said, it is people discovering what he's doing. That's the point. People don't want to be sold. I think that's the thing.
Yeah, I think everyone sees
sold
this
every moment of the day. When we wake up, you know, people want this or want that, you know. We're in a room, the oxygen's going out of the room, we're thinking we have to, you know, make this stuff, we've got to get out, we've got to make this, if only people could hear it. So how do I get people to hear it? I'm just going to pay for PR and pay for this. Believe me, any artist that's paying for PR already has a deal, in a sense, because if they've got enough money to pay $2,000 a promote, $2,000, I think it's 2,000 more or less, that's the average, 2,000 per single to promote stuff, to get PR, right? And you're ringing up your PR agent going, why not get any PR? And they go, because no one knows you are, mate. You ain't got no fans. So when I'm talking to this editor here and I'm saying, I've got this really good artist that no one's ever heard of and no one's going to want to read about on your website, do you mind giving us, 12 inches of space on your site? They're like, not really, because we've got this act here that's just signed with AWOL and that's doing all right. So like I was saying, going back to the classism thing, it does divide the people that have a bit more privilege behind them or a bit more kind of stuff. They can kind of afford to kind of put money into those areas, but I don't believe those areas are really where it's at.
Well, just a couple of things that are sort of, while we're talking, there is a thing that Imogen Heap, you know the artist Imogen Heap?
Amazing. Yeah.
She's setting up a thing called Mycelia, which is like a blockchain distribution of money for artists. So an equal division of the money that's sold from online sales will go specifically directly to each of the people involved. So there's no big like chunk taken out by a label or distributor or promoter or anything like that. Or maybe there will be, but it will be an equal percent. So I think that's something
check that out.
That is
check that out. I
pushing
think she's
it forward.
amazing.
Yeah, and the more people that get behind that, I think the more musicians that get behind that idea, the more likely it is to happen. And it is a really good idea.
I think it's a good idea. I definitely looked into it. I think like my only kind of I was talking to Hills about this. My only kind of, not bugbear with it, but just my only kind of wrangling with it is I don't know how much it really speaks to unsigned acts that are just playing in London to 20, 30 people, or putting out music to a couple of hundred people online or whatever. Does it really? Because is there going to be any... I get the morals behind it. The morals are absolutely correct. That's the way it should be set up. She's kind of saying this is the way it should work, and it isn't set up this way, so why not? But I think it's going to benefit more of those mid-level acts that are coming up that have a more of a sustained thing. I think for most acts that are just really unknown, we're not looking at our purse going, where's my money? No one owes me any money. No one's buying records. There's no royalties. It's like there is none. That's the grand total of that chain would find that there's 12 pence allocated to Si Connelly this month. We've got to make sure he gets it. So as much as I'm proud to receive the 12 pence, it really is kind of like it really doesn't really help.
Yeah, I think
it's the mid-level. I think the thought behind it is brilliant, and I think that I'm surprised that's not the case already.
Yeah,
I do find blockchaining really confusing though.
It is confusing. I talk to people here about it, and it is really, really confusing. It's not something that mere mortals like you and me know exactly what's happening. But it's the morals behind it. It's the ideology behind like the sharing of it.
I always felt, sorry to interrupt, I always felt that I had an idea that, so streaming, for instance, take something like Spotify. Here's the royalties. Here's the plays that have basically been played per label. So Universal made up 30-40%. This made up this percentage. Just this label made up 30%. And then the artist within that label, maybe Adele made up 80% of that 34%. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So in a sense, it trickles. The payment system should be trickling down to the percentage of how much that specific. There's probably a number of artists on those labels that brought in, and it's kind of like a shareholder system in a weird way. I probably won't make any sense in my brain. There's a load of monkeys running around my brain with white coats going, this is how it should work. Mm-hmm. But I don't know how to do it. It's all evolved pretty quickly, not as quickly as the gaming world, but it's definitely evolved a lot quicker than most people. The second they said you could cherry pick songs and digitalize music, in a sense, it was kind of the beginning of that world and the start, the end of that world and the start of something new.
Yeah, I think nowadays like the consumer is powerful. That like with Amazon, you've almost got this superhuman strength to go, what do I want? I want a high-tech calculator, and you can get it tomorrow.
Yeah.
So it's like this superhuman strength, or you can visualize something you want, and it literally appears on your doorstep. So like, the consumer's like...
Human connection has absolutely thrived in that, because we now want to connect more with people, just in general, on a normal level. I mean, it's just on a kind of human level.
Yeah, because I think
that has so much weight to it. So that's the one great thing that's grown out of it, because there'd be no way of doing that back in 1998 here. There's no way I could have really connected. You'd have to hang around outside a venue until like 1 or 2 in the morning to get a glimpse of one of your artists coming out of a venue.
Exactly.
Getting into a van,
Yeah, I mean, for me, a weird thing happened. Keith Flint died this year from the Prodigy, and I was a huge Prodigy fan. So I went to Braintree to the funeral.
Wow.
And I saw in real life Liam Howlett. I've seen him on stage before, but like I saw the actual guy, and it was, that was a huge deal. Like just. Obviously, I was there for Keith's funeral. Like it was tremendous.
He was such a loss. I saw them around the Fat and Land record. I think it was a headline V99 or V98, one of them. It was amazing. I was at the front and just amazing artists. But he was in a weird one as well, in a sense, because his fans and their fans connected with him on a kind of personal level, and it's kind of goes back to what it's now about. Like the rewards now are kind of collecting a family of people that kind of love what you do, and you kind of it's not just one way. You kind of get involved in what they're doing, and it is much. There are some really great things about the modern age. It's not all doom and gloom at all. Like it's just the way. It's just a way that how do independent acts make a living? How do they sustain being able to create music? That's kind of really what I'm saying.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
I think things like Patreon, the website, the creator membership platform that they have, I think that can actually be a benefit. If it's not if those websites, if they're not thought of as making money necessarily, but they're much more thought about as a place to kind of connect directly and give more content and have much more of an open relationship. And there is some money that kind of is growing, but it's much slower. And it's, in a sense, the more you grow your body of sort of Patreon members, the more you grow your audience in a certain way. But it's much more tribal. So you have your fan base on Spotify, you have your fan base there, and you have your fan base live. Trying to get it all at the same time is always a pretty tricky thing to do.
It is. I think Gary Newman's done quite well in terms of like diversifying what he offers for people. So as a punter, you can pay to go to his rehearsal sessions.
Wow, amazing.
You can buy, he sells his old gear. He sells lots of bands do this, sell like the song lyrics that he's written or stuff. But yeah, if you look at what's available in his like website, you're like, yeah, he's really thought about
Really
what's going to be
yeah.
fun. Like going to a rehearsal is like normally that's just such a private thing that is just you and your band or whatever.
Half my band don't even turn up to my rehearsals. I'd actually need people to. If you can come to my rehearsal and you can play,
you can be
spoons.
That'd be good, wouldn't it? Like they could jam.
They
I
definitely
think
could
he's
be.
done really well in terms of like diversifying the merch.
Yeah,
into cool
what?
stuff that is.
I've started to kind of get on board with this whole vibe now. After coming into this new record, it's called Change, my new album, and it's called Change for so many reasons, and that's one of them. It's just completely, weirdly enough, for all of my opinions on streaming and I have completely. You have to embrace the world and find it in a creative way, and all of those things. There's so many more places. That's the good thing about the internet now. Is there's so much more places to do it. But I think that it's not all just on Spotify. I think you might have 1 million streams. I know people that've got millions of streams on Spotify, and they get 10 people to their shows.
Yeah,
it's
a bit
like
of a paradox.
Or they've got 90,000 people on Twitter and 15 people turn up to a show. Or they've got 250, 500 people coming to a show and hardly anything going on online.
Yeah, that's a weird one, isn't it? When you look at a band online and they're like, you've loved them and seen them live and everyone's gone crazy for them, and you look online like, wow, no social media presence. But for me, they've done it the right way around there.
Yeah,
'cause social media really means fuck all.
It doesn't mean anything, and it's just a different audience. I don't think a lot of new artists do it. I think there are in the grime world that they've realised that, and there are a few other things. But I think that coming from like playing guitars and stuff, I don't think that when I'm saying I'm trying to let myself in with a generation that's younger than me in a sense, but so they probably understand it because they grew up with it. But a lot of people are around my kind of era that are going back to that. It took us a while to catch up and figure out, what is this and how to work it. And so I think you'll find that. But social media, you just have to work all your plates need to be spinning at the same time. You kind of can't afford to have nothing going on Spotify, but you can't afford to have loads of stuff going on Spotify and no one can see you live. There's like offline audience, your Spotify audience, your Patreon audience, your crowdfunding audience, your Twitter kind of interactions, your Facebook stuff, your friends, it's just so much,
Yeah, definitely.
And there's so many mediums writing books and doing all sorts of stuff that's not just music, that people are much more interested in the person,
Exactly. I think people are missing...
Music's a sort of garnish on the side, in a sense, so it's connecting as a human being is so much more rewarding, and that's something that they would just never have got on board with. Can you imagine the Stones or, even Oasis? Hang out at Oasis rehearsal? No thanks. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
they're
like
not
ask them anything.
Yeah, ask Bonehead where his hair's gone. Like they're not gonna want to reveal all. You know what I mean? The mystique was part of it.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I think that's if there's for marketing now, if there's a mystique side of it, it's easier when you've got the Gagas and that thing. But for the most part, I think you kind of need to be a lot more open now. And you have to get on board being comfortable with that. Even if you're not.
Yeah, do you think that, I know for me personally, going to live music is an incredible experience. Like, I love doing it, and I do it like a lot now, especially living in Brighton. And I think for a lot of people, having that human contact of the real thing happening in front of them and being there and experiencing it, like, that's more of a deal than ever before, seeing live music.
It is.
Because you know you're supporting these people that you love, and
it's like, about 18 months ago, I actually sort of stopped playing. I kind of got to a point where I was like, I stopped playing live. So I'd done a lot of touring. I've been touring, people were at a time were like, what are you doing? I was like, I've been doing this 20 years. Like, been playing like 70, 80, 200 shows a year, like for 20 years. Like, and I did a couple of years of playing shows, and I got more of a following in London, to be honest, than I have anywhere else. But I just got to a point where I was like, I'm now just doing this for... It felt like I was doing it for like ego reasons. Like, it felt like I was doing it because it made me feel good that like 120 people or 200 people or whatever would come to a show. And I loved the fact they'd come, but I was like, well, I'm playing the same songs. They've seen it 1,000 times. I'm focusing my energies on this because it's more comforting to do this than realise that I've really got nothing going on, And I just didn't want to get stuck in that loop of just continuously doing that. It wasn't enough for me. I'd mostly be depressed at shows and just down anyway. So I kind of stepped away from it, and I sort of did my thing I do a lot, which I get people take the mick out of me about, but I sort of say, this is the last time I'm doing this, or the last time I'm doing that. I kind of quit stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean it at the time, and a lot of them sort of wry about it and go, oh yeah, I'll see you again soon. And maybe they probably know me better than myself, but at the time I was like, what's the point? If nothing changes, I don't see the point in doing another show like this.
Yeah, it does say somewhere that you retired from playing live in 2018.
I did, yeah, and then 2019 and back. So it's what made me come back was I made this record. I did a big kind of walk thing as well across the country, and I had some time away from it, and I realised it was somebody that said to me, a friend of mine that said, it's your people, what you don't realise is the most valuable thing is your connection to the audience and their connection to you. If you take that away, it's just insane. It's your biggest asset.
Yeah, exactly.
So why would you take it away? So and I realised after having some time off, and I realised if I came back live in a structured way, so it had to go up, the trajectory had to be forward. But I would mean I'd had to raise my game to the best in the world, live, to really be able to like grab people to the point of making them trip up and lean in and discover it themselves. So I came up with a plan to, okay, I'm going to book a year's shows. It's got to kind of grow together. I got this little project thing called Project Basket, which is every aspect, all those plates spinning. I'm trying to manage all the time. And my live thing was kind of variety, but effectively there's 8 big shows over the course of a year, so they've all been booked. And I wanted to raise the fact that the last places I played were 200, 300 capacity. Mm-hmm. I wanted to go right back and go, right, okay, I'm actually going to go right back and not oversell and not push this down people's throats. I don't want Aunt Edna here and this person there and 10 mates. It's just got to be real now. So I took it back and I played a show at a place called Servants Jazz Courts, which is like 60 capacity in London. I mean, the next one's 40 capacity at Betsy Trotwood, and then each time it kind of goes up. So then the next one it'll be one after that is St Pancras Old Church in September, which is 100 capacity. And then I think it's going to be, I don't want to mention the venues, but basically they go up, it gets further and further up. Each venue goes up, capacity goes up 20%, 30%. And they're all headline shows, and my own label shows, the Dead Rabbit events and stuff, so they're all quite themed. But they really slow build, so that basically in a year, so I think a year yesterday, so it's the 18th of July today, so the year 17th of July next year, I headline Dingwalls, which is the biggest headline show I've ever done, 500 capacity venue in London.
Oh, nice.
And then after that, if I can achieve that, then it'll be, right, this is now the level I want to play. When I'm doing a headline show in a city like London, this is now the level. It's like the next stage to try and get to is Scala, and then Union Chapel, and just trying to actually see a trajectory of rise rather than play the same venues at the same level.
Yeah, I think it's great to like grow that, because your sort of your adjustment to it will be a slow progression as well. Like
the shows, even the music
really
changes in the way, but also your connection with the audience. You see, they're there, and it's just as important that they're part of something. And my connection with them is, it really, like a live show to me and performance to me is it's a complete connection with the audience, and it's a conversation. It's not a monologue, you know. It's a conversation between the two, and that could be during sound check. It can be at the show itself, but it really, the minute it starts to happen, there's only one way you can have that moment of that pin drop moment of the most intense moments live, and that's because you have to love your audience, and they have to kind of love what you're doing and feel a part of it. And with my stuff now, it's become even more important to do that. So to me, it was like a no-brainer coming back live and doing that. I want that audience to be able to look around at Dingwalls and venue, you know, even more than that, you know, who knows if we can't get to Roundhouse and places like that, even being an unsigned independent act, I don't see why not. And I want those people to be able to look around and go, wow, look at what we've grown, you know. The music will be part of that, and then there's the pension stuff, and then there's in amongst that, doing these spot shows where I just turn up and do one song. It's really quite funny. Do one song, that's it. And so I'm playing a lot more than those big shows. I just pop up in places. I don't advertise I'm doing it. I just go turn up, do the one song, and then, you know.
Where do you do one?
I've done song? Quite a lot of them. Most of them in London, some in Brighton and Colchester and sort of surrounding areas. These little spot gigs I do, and I'll probably go like 2 hours before I was a spot gig, and I'm going to be at this address type thing. But it's not really even to notify the people to come and see it, because it's much more about, I want to go in and hoover up that audience, you know. And it just means in that one song, I have to perform that one song so well that I can guarantee that I'm going to get those people.
Because there's
more. You know, I want.
It's an interesting
approach. It's really good, man. People want to hear more and they can't get more, so they have to come to the shows to see more. It's a really cool thing, and I found them, and you can do them all the time, and it's great. I love them, and they've been really much more effective than I thought they would ever have been. And then I've got the regional shows amongst that, so I'm doing lots of regional stuff, and now I'm doing tours as well, the normal stuff. So the next stage for me probably is to try and get a booking agent at the end of this process, to try and showcase that I have a following to some respect, get an agent, get some decent supports with some decent acts, some touring acts. That's what, that in a sense, they are spot gigs, because you're on stage for like 10 minutes before the main act or first on or whatever, but then you're playing to audiences who've never meet your stuff. So,
exactly.
So for me, there's a really scaled, highly kind of thought out approach to my live shows, and every single time I go on stage, I literally want these people to see the best thing they've seen, you know.
Exactly.
That's how I want it to be.
Yeah, the first podcast I ever did was with a girl called Cheryl Pinero, who's a bassist, and she played with the Go Team, and she played with lots of other bands. And this whole podcast started because she agreed to be interviewed.
Wow.
And I was like, oh fuck, I've actually got to do this.
You've got to get it going, yeah.
I was like, shit, she agreed to do it. That's mental. Because when I saw her on stage, she had like this amazing stage presence and captivation that I didn't really see anything or anyone else in the band. She just had such great stage presence, and I asked her about that, and she said it was like you've got to remember that nowadays you're competing with a lot of stuff that people could be doing other than sing live music. So she said it has to be a performance. This is not just about me playing my bass guitar on time with the music. This is about performance. And I was like, fuck yeah, I'd never, as a punter, I'd never thought about that. And like, I'm in a band and we play occasionally, just at pubs and stuff. And like, Yeah, someone played us a video of us playing live, and it was like none of us are like actually performing. We're all just doing our job, and yeah, that's what people are there to see. Those
for me, yeah,
happening,
it's an
aren't they?
exorcism. Like when I play live, it's absolutely the one place I feel at home, and I only really make sense as a person once you see me play. Like, don't really make sense. But I'm kind of like an awkward kind of out of work monkey or something, you know, before that moment. So when people see it live, you should be able to get the audience before you even open your mouth or even play a note. You should just be, you're on stage. It's a weird like metaphysical thing that happens where you can get the room to that pin drop moment without even doing anything. It's a strange thing, but for some reason I've had the ability to do that for a long time, but I got lazy with it as well. I just would think that's kind of, I don't know, I just thought that's, you rely on your tricks, you get lazy as a performer, and you think you're going to get caught out, someone of real reference is going to say, yeah, I know what you're doing, you know, you're doing this, you're doing that, I kind of would rely on those tricks a bit, so that's why I kind of stepped away from music as well. I was thinking, I'm not really performing that great, it's still going down well, so I'm just sort of lapping it up, and for me, like, I'm trying to be up there with Amy Winehouse and up there with the best performers in the world. I'm not trying to compete with anyone I'm playing with, and it's funny I say compete because I come from that world where it's a healthy, happy competition, but I'm like that. I don't understand this. You wouldn't see this in athletics, and so Usain Bolt standing on the sidelines cheering on his competitor, going, "Oh wow, you've done so well, you beat me!" Like,
that's a great thing about music.
Yeah, music is people. I want to be. I want to be the best. I want to be the best actor I can be for myself. It's nothing to do with like better than other people, but I just want to be better myself. And I don't think there's that many. There's a lot of acts. I don't think there's that many great acts. And it went to years ago. I really worried to play amongst some of the people I played with, but now I don't worry. I have a lot of belief and faith in what I'm doing, but I know it's because it comes from the audience, and it comes from that connection and knowing that, and belief in the songs, belief in the dynamics of this stuff, and it's the only thing that's still going to be there at the end of it all, I owe my voice a lot, I think. I worry if I go through some Tom Waits years, I might have to change the way I do it. In fact, if I lose my voice, I still do shows, but I do them very differently. They're very strange. I'll sit down, but I'll usually get a whiskey at that point. I'll sit down, I'll cross my legs, and I'll point the mic up like Graham Coxon or something, sort of mumble into the mic, like a Dylan or something. It's great. It's a different thing because I can't, it just changed the songs, but.
Yeah, I think you always adapt to the.
Got to adapt, right? Otherwise you drown.
Your album 13 Ghosts, you said, was a love letter to yourself, which is sort of following on from what you're saying about doing it for yourself. Why did you describe it that way?
Okay, cool. I'll give you a super kind of, as fast as I can do it. So first and foremost, to answer that question, 13 Ghosts was a love letter to myself because it was, those things were the only 13 remaining ghosts. That's how I sort of see songs, as little ghosts that live in me that I kind of somehow let out to the world. They sort of get out of my head and start haunting someone else. And that record was the final 13 tracks that I'd had. So what I mean by that is, I mentioned Sam Williams earlier, and I made a record with him. So a really quick synopsis of my career, if you can call it that. So 21. I got signed to EMI Publishing. They gave me like a label as well, so I made a record with Sam Williams. I didn't like the record. It didn't sound. It's just I wasn't good enough. Ultimately, the songs weren't some of the songs were good enough, but not all of them were good enough. But I should have been developing really, and I wasn't. The powers that be said, hey, make a record and let's just put it out. And so I made an album. I didn't really like it. Stopped that album coming out. I sort of shelved myself in a sense with the label. I refused to let them release it, and they refused to keep giving me any more money, which is fair enough. And so then I disappeared. I changed my name. I grew a beard. Went to France for a bit. Went crazy for a while, and I vanished off the face of the earth for like years. I didn't know where I was. And then I did a show in London by accident under a fake name, and by accident, Samain, our guy, saw me from Sony, right? And then he said, as they always do, these goddamn business cards, paper cuts that I get at these shows now is ridiculous. So he was, I want you to come up to London, I want you to play to my MD, and I just thought, yeah, whatever, okay. I said, well, look, I'm not coming to London, man. I'm doing any of this. Because he said, you're not Sam Elliott, because that was my fake name. You're not Sam Elliott, you're Si Connelly, right? I said, yeah.
It's a detective as well.
Yeah. And he was like, wow, I want to play you to my manager, my MD, Craig Logan at the time at Sony, RCA. But I was just in a weird place. So I said, I'm not coming to London to play to your guy. He's gonna have to come to Cheltenham, and I've got a job and work in a factory or whatever. So you have to come at 5 or 6 p.m. Now this is not. I'm trying to get the MD of Sony Records and this head of A&R to drive 200 miles or whatever it was, or 100 miles or whatever it is, for 2 hours anyway, away from London, to see me play in a little bedroom after work.
When they're accustomed to everyone.
And they did, because he said he's not going to come. So he came down, and it was a weird thing. So they had no water, it was like floods and everything. He came down, and I played him Simple Eyes and a few songs off the first album, and he loved it, and pretty much offered me a deal straight away off the bat of that. So I ended up getting a record deal with Sony, and at that point my deal with Chrysalis was about to expire, because it had been that long, that many years. My actual contract was about to expire with them, and this album that I refused to put out. So anyway, I walked back into Chrysalis, and they said, where the hell have you been? Like, we've been trying to search for you, no one could find you. I said, well, I needed some time. Anyway, Sony randomly enough want to sign me now. So they were like, whoa, Jesus. So they're running around trying to get an extension on this contract for the publishing for that record. So then I made an album with them. It's about 2007, and I made an album with Sony now with a guy called Jazz Rogers, which is not who I wanted to make the record with. I wanted to make it live in a studio, and that's they were the terms I signed under. But as always, they just say, just do this. I was just gonna go and see a mate, blah blah blah. Before you know it, this is your album. Yeah. Before you know it, here's your record. And no real, not really any fault of anyone's, but it just didn't end up coming out. Again, it sounded plastic to me. It was produced in a kind of in the box kind of laptops and all that business, and it sounded like this isn't good enough. Because for me it's not good enough. I'm trying to make a classic record, and I just felt it wasn't good enough. So anyway, I again blocked that record coming out. So now I've made 2 albums with 2 major labels, and they offered me. I said, look, I'm not happy with this record. I said I have to remake the record the way I wanted to do it originally, right? And they said, I want to do it with Chris Potter at this point. And they said, okay, we'll see how much money's left. And they said, we've got 30 grand left. Which now, I mean, Jesus, I'm still ready for that money. But at the time, I was like, no, it's not enough, because that was 30 grand including marketing spend. So there's no guarantee basically on marketing spend. So most producers at that time would make a record for maybe 20 grand.
Wow.
So you'd leave 10 grand of contingency for playing musicians and a bit of marketing and stuff. But really, effectively they're saying there's very little left. My lawyer said, well, they're not really giving you much. You're better off asking them for your rights back, and tell them to give you 10 grand for wasting your time, really, because we're in this place because their decisions they made. So I managed to get 10 grand to leave. So I managed to get out of there, and luckily enough, not luckily enough, but for me, you could see it as luck. Everyone at that label got fired about 2 months later, as labels do. So I would have been dropped anyway. So I managed to get out of there with some money and not officially be dropped. And obviously that meant the end of Chrysalis' deal anyway, because they were like, okay, this guy's now made 2 albums. He's not put them out. And it's not because it's difficult. It's because I just refuse to put out music. The world doesn't need more rubbish music. It doesn't need stuff that's, and frankly, it wasn't that. Some of it wasn't that great.
Yeah, it's got to reflect your vision too.
Yeah,
it's got to be what you want it to sound.
Exactly.
Like.
And at that point, I was like, right, okay. That's the exact point I kind of suddenly was living out of a car and didn't have anything going for me. And I just, when you type into your email, like you type a word in, like, and it suddenly brings up, like in the address bar, it brings up people, everyone whose name begins with C.
Yeah.
So I went through A, I can't really contact those producers anymore. Went through B, and then I hit C, and then Chris Potter came up because this was the guy the producer that was gonna maybe tart up my album or whatever. I refused to have it tarted up, so I was like, I have to remake it. So I didn't turn up to meetings. So I contacted him and said, would you be up for doing a development deal? I have no money. Like, back then, when you said you had no money, that meant you had $5,000 or something. No, I had no money. I didn't have anywhere to live, so I was living out of his car.
Said, when I say no money.
Yeah, and I met up with him, and he said, yeah, I'll listen to your stuff. And I came down, and I played him some songs, and I knew the reaction I'd get, because I can rely on that one thing. I can plant the seed, and I know that seed's going to be enough to make them water it themselves. They're going to want to do it. So he said, okay, so how much money have you got? And I got like quid out of my pocket. I said, that's it, man, like nothing. And he said, well, you're going to have to try and find a way to get studio time. I'll make the album for nothing, based on a kind of split deal of the copyright of the record or whatever. I want to bring my mate in, Dom Morley. This is where Dom comes in. And I was thinking, okay, cool. I get 2 great producers for no money. So I did a deal with Montevalli that Christmas, I think, Montevalli Studios. I rang them up and said, listen, Joe, who was at Montevalli then, Si Connelly, I made my first album there. I managed to get, I've got no deal at the moment, but I'm going to get a deal. It's going to be licensed. I've got Grammy Award winning producers making this record now, Chris and Dom and that. Can I get some downtime? Okay, how much money do you have? Nothing, just for free. Okay, I can give you 5 days over Christmas. So we used it. I got 5 days over Christmas. The deal was, I think I paid them double when I got signed, which I still haven't happened. So I still owe them that money. I'm good for it. I'm good.
They'll get it.
They're gonna get it. But yeah, that's how the first album came out. And this is a very long-winded way of answering that question, but
it's fine.
It's so connected to what I'm kind of doing now. So anyway, we made that first album, but it did take a long time, to like 4 or 5 years, because Chris was working with the Stones and Blur and these sorts of people, and Don was doing all the Ronson and working on his own stuff. So it did take a long time, and the industry changed so much in that time. This is like 2000 and, I don't remember now, God, 2010, 2004. The album, it took a long time. The industry had changed a lot. We made an album though that I was proud of. Not every song on the record I was a big fan of, but Chris liked certain songs and Chris hated certain other songs, and so some songs like I think it's called Play now on the album, the first album, which was originally called You Made Me. I wasn't a big fan of that one, but a lot of stuff on that first record was great anyway, like Hurt You and Good Night My Lover and stuff. And anyway, I ended up getting it licensed years later, about 6 years after starting that record. I got it licensed or something or got released with West One Music. West One Music is like taking your car to a junkyard and asking them if they can buy it for parts. Because that's what happened basically. The record was a great record, but I was going to sell it for film and TV and stuff. So that's what it's done really. It's done a lot of that stuff, and that record did quite well. I mean, Coldplay kind of put it on their site, and a few other people sort of backed it. But coming back from my second album, Eject, which was like double album, 24 track record.
So rarities. And
demos. So those rarities and demos were the 2 records I shelved with Sony and with Chrysalis. They were and all the stuff I'd recorded in between. So I had like 70 tracks sitting around. Like I was like, I need to get this stuff out before I can really move on. I have to fill in the gaps. Like, why did this guy release a single in 2004 and he's not released anything for years, till 2016, like 12 years and not releasing anything.
Yeah.
What the hell's going on? So I had to fill in the gaps and start again and go, right, okay, I know I'm a lot older now, but do you know what? It's fine. I'm going to put this record out. I put out Youth War and Joy came out in 2016, and I managed to put Eject out. It was a successful Pledge Music campaign. Put Eject out in 2017. And then 13 Ghosts, coming back to what you're saying, was the remaining 13 tracks that were left, that were like, this stuff needs to come out. It doesn't need to come out because the world needs to hear this song, or it needs to come out because I can't live with this 70 ghosts flying around my head. I can't create a new record. I can't move forward and create music when I've not put out songs which deserve to just be out. And you know, if people hate them, I don't really care, because I just want them out there.
Yeah.
So that's why I put Youth War and Joy out, Eject out, and then 13 Ghosts. So I think in a space of about 3 years, I put out about 70 songs or something. And then I wrote some stuff with the guy from The Voice, for the guy at The Voice. So that stuff came out, and I'm in a band called Goldbirds, and that stuff came out. And but it also, in that interim time, when you're looking at the barrel of kind of the gun of, I've ruined my life and what I can do the rest of my life, I'm broke, I'm kind of a loser. It's kind of how I felt, you know, like, Jesus, you know, going nowhere now, it's basically failed. I was like, I need to get a degree or something, you know, because I didn't do very well at school. So I did a degree. It took like 3 or 4 years to do music production.
Yeah.
To try and learn how to produce, so because I knew I couldn't afford to make records if I couldn't produce them myself. It turns out I still can't afford to do it, even with those skills. But anyway, I got the degree, which helped me sort of get a bank of it. It just made me feel better as a person. Like, I didn't feel like I wasn't worth anything. I just felt, you know, okay, look, I've got what everyone else has got now. You know, I've got the degree. A kid who got kicked out of school has now got a degree, which is cool, and I could do a master's if I want and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Through doing that, I managed to produce my third album, Change, which is kind of my fourth album, because 13 Ghost is an album, as the distributors told me. As I tried to put it as an EP, they were like, it's a 13-track EP. You can't have a 13-track EP, that's an album.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not an official album, it's an EP. They didn't see it my way, so it's classed as an album, which it probably is cool. It's like a sort of bone and drag or something, you know. But yeah, so then Change is the record I made. It's called Change for those reasons, really. Very different sounding record to anything I've done, actually. I broke this peg I keep playing with.
Oh.
I'm playing with a peg just because I have to hold something and I snapped it in half.
Oh no.
We're going to get turfed out here.
We'll have to reimburse them with some...
I'm sure I can make it. I'm good for it. It's my motto.
Like artists and stuff, people who do win awards, people who win like Grammys and Emmys and all that stuff, the one skill or like quality that they've all got is perseverance.
Oh yeah.
Because no one ever gave up and then won a Grammy.
You've got to keep going. You absolutely have to keep going. I have a condition. I just cannot quit. It won't happen. You know, I don't have the luxury of being. I mean, it must be nice. I can understand why people do it, because it gets so hard and it's become even more impossible for people now. But it's just, what else am I going to do? You know.
What else?
Career. I mean, I can always be a comedian down the line. That's the good thing. All comedians become. All musicians end up becoming comedians and vice versa. And it's quite a genuine thing I might do one day. I mean, I'm more actually inspired by comedy than I am with music. Like, I get most of my inspiration. Right, as a creative person, comes from Bill Bryson and comedians, Jerry Seinfeld, and podcasts. You know, and listening to The Condition. But the process for me, comedians, is much more honest than music. Much more honest. Like, okay, there's a lot of artists out there. There's so many artists out there. Brilliant. Most of them, let's be honest, are okay. There's a few that are great. And there's a few that are okay that become great through perseverance and through years and years and years. And there's a few that start off great and then become okay, you know. But one thing that isn't real with music, I don't believe. But I'm talking about, when I talk about this, I'm talking about live music at the level I'm at, not necessarily the bigger world. but I'm talking about more grassroots, the real grassroots stuff that's out there. And music is a little forgiving where comedy isn't. So what I mean by that is, when you're a comedian, you walk into a venue, you will get up on that stage, you're funny or you're not. People laugh or they don't laugh. They don't laugh because they're your mate. They don't think, oh, this guy's great. I connect with him so much online. I love his funny Twitter thing. They laugh at you because you're a funny comedian, and you're only a funny comedian because you've understood the craft of it. You've understood the risks you're taking to try and get that audience to jump with you over that ravine and not fall in the middle. And when they all make it to the other side, they're like, wow, this is really great, and they're with you. But it's not an easy thing, but it's so unforgiving. You can't be a mediocre, you can't be okay and do that well. And I love that about it. I wish music was like that. I wish you had to be brilliant, funny or not, and people love it or they don't. There's a lot of light hand clapping. It's a lot of, that was great. But is it, do we need more of that, or is that just more noise that's filling up the room when there's 2 or 3 things here that I really would like to hear, but I can't hear them because now, and I think it's become a lot easier in music to copy other artists, and I mean that from like things like X Factor and stuff.
That emulate.
A perfect example now, if you go back to 1998 or 2002, right? Nowhere in the history of music did anyone say the word close like this. Close your eyes. There wasn't any of that. There wasn't any of this. It wasn't all. No one talked like James Arthur. No one sung like that. But then suddenly Ed Sheeran came along, and now everyone sings like that.
Yeah, it's like
that's not how anyone sung for 70 years, and now everyone seems to sound the same.
Yeah,
you either sound like Ellie Goulding, Adele, Ed Sheeran, or like James Arthur, and it drives me crazy. I listen to that Lewis geezer, Capaldi geezer, who's always having to go at no, and I do like him. I follow his stuff, and I like his songs are good, and his voice is cool, and he kind of looks like a kind of panda. I kind of like that. I like pandas, so that's good. And but one thing I thought, I listened to his stuff and I was like, oh, it's disappointing. He's singing. He sounds like a bad James Arthur, and James Arthur's, there's nothing wrong with him. Do you know what I mean? He's got a good voice. He's a perfectly valid act. He looks like an owl, which is strange, but apart from that, he's all right. And I thought, well, okay, I'll look into this guy, which I always do, because that's the sort of I'm narcissistic like this, and I always look at, okay, who wrote this song? So I listened to that song, big hit of his. I was like, okay, he didn't write this. There's no way he wrote this song. I look at the credits, which you have to really hunt for these days. If you want to, you have to really be narcissistic and kind of weird to want to know what the credits are to people's songs. But to me, as a songwriter, it matters, because the integrity of a singer-songwriter is hugely important. The people I respect write their songs and write their records, John Mayer and Ryan Adams and the Beatles and things like that. It wasn't done by committee, whereas nowadays I think it's become less about that. It's become more about, how do we create the bubblegum? Okay, there's 20 people in the world that create great bubblegum, let's go there. And there was a lot of pressure when I was labels actually to do that, to get in with these big writers, get in with Egg White and these writers out there. But I just said to the label, look, if I can't, I refused to go to any co-writing sessions. I didn't get any.
Really?
I was like, I'm writing 100% of everything I'm doing.
Right.
Because if I'm not good enough to write these songs, I shouldn't have this deal. Someone else should have it. There's a kid out there that should have this deal. Because if I'm going to go and sound my hits that were written basically by somebody else, I just didn't see the point. I can't meet Ryan Adams and go, oh, hiya, how's it going, mate? You know what I mean? When this guy wrote Heartbreaker, and I wrote these string of really good hits that were on Radio 1, but actually, let's be honest, they could have been sung by Pink or anyone, because it was the same writers. And it does sound like I'm a bit of a dig at Lewis and those sort of people, but I understand it a bit more now. It's a bit more collaborative world, but I don't know. You look at that hit's got 4 of the biggest songwriters in the world on that song. You know, is it a surprise then that Radio 1 are going to playlist it? Is it a surprise that this album is suddenly going to go really well and the label are going to put all their weight behind it? No, it's not, because we've got a formula here. We've got someone who's sort of unconventional, singing to people who will connect with that, and we're giving them the biggest songs in the world, and there's nothing wrong with that. But like, to me as a creator, I just, for some reason, I want to be responsible for what I'm creating.
Yeah,
and if what I'm creating is not good enough, then I don't deserve to do it. You know, as far as I'm concerned.
And I guess it's all about continually honing and crafting your process and your sound and your songs.
It's about being funny or not. It's about being able to get on stage and do it and being real. That's what I love about Amy Winehouse. Like, Amy Winehouse co-wrote with some really big writers. So did Katie Tunstall, for instance. And so does Ed Sheeran, to be fair, but he's a great writer in his own right. He still writes good songs. He still has the ability. So once you've done it, you can kind of, Michael Jackson wrote some amazing songs, but he also had sung songs by the biggest acts and the biggest songwriters at the time. But it's whether it's funny or not. It's like, for me, it's got nothing to do with like what works, because clearly it works a lot better if you get the machine behind you. But that's not why we're doing what I'm doing. I'm doing what I'm doing because I'm trying to ask myself, are you great? Are you a good act? Are you up there? And if I'm not, then the answer is no, I'm not. I could become a comedian or something. But
what about in this scenario where someone says to you, look, we've got a great song, it's been written by two amazing artists, you can change any of these lyrics if you want to alter them, and if you really liked the song and you came up with a melody, would you then?
Yeah, I think I have done a few. I have since done some co-writing because I wrote for other people. When you write for other people, you have to get on board with this co-writing world, because that's just, it's all about the collaborative nature of, I do air quote marks, collaborate. The more people get enriched off a song, the better the song's going to do. So I've done a lot of them kind of writing things for other people, and some of those things I've actually ended up putting out myself. I was just so tired of them hanging around. I was like, I'm going to put this out. But funny enough, my audience have never really reacted to those songs, even though they're bigger songs. They much more react to the things that are real, and they're no less real. So in that circumstance, it's funny because I've put out 3 albums worth of material so far, and more or less everything's been written by me. I mean, 100% of it has really. There's a few things that have some co-write names on them, but they really didn't do anything. They just were there because they were recording the song.
That's an amazing achievement, really.
So now I'm over that bubble. So now I don't feel insecure in myself as a writer. See, that a lot of those things come off insecurities. Like, I would refuse to go in with Guy Chambers and those people before, or Ian Archer, all those people, because the people I respected made their music. I'm a singer-songwriter. I should be able to write my own songs. Noel Gallagher said recently on a podcast that him and Johnny Marr, more or less, are the only ones that he knows that write their own songs. Everyone else, he was like, our kid, even our kid, and all that. And, they're right. And it's Liam Gallagher said it himself, he's like, well, I'm not a songwriter, am I? I've written some great songs, but, this is the way it goes. I think that, but he's got enough confidence in himself now, even him at the top of his game, has enough confidence in who he is to be able to do that and not feel like he's cheating in any way. It's like, well, Noel's not writing for me. By the way, I've got a really good Oasis track called Stay, which if Liam hears, he should sing on his next record.
Really?
Yeah, it's a really good song. I'd like to get it to him, but I don't know how to have it.
How can you get to him?
It's just Noel Gallagher. It just sounds like it was written by Noel Gallagher in 1995, I don't know how I'm going to get it to him.
Do you know,
he's
we'll
too
find
scary
out his manager or his agent or...
But top man, I'll give it a listen, mate. Yeah, sorted. I do all that, and he's kind of. So I don't mind that world, but if you think about it, so I do probably sound like I'm moaning about like those people. Like I'm not, but it just changes the paradigm. So if that's the norm, from a person online that's listening to music out there, if the norm is that this new solo artist has these amazing songs, the best songs we've heard in the bloody world, constructed, poppy, they're great.
Perfect arrangements.
Yeah, perfect arrangements. Then we can't keep up. A lot of the time we can't keep up. We're trying to compete with like a convention of writers that are the biggest writers out there. How do we keep up? Well, we'll keep up by becoming great ourselves, like better at writing ourselves. But I don't know. I suppose I'm talking about pop music mainly, but
I think
music's become quite homogenised, isn't it? So it's all pop, really.
Yeah, and I think people are so used, like collaboration for everything is happening across the board now, like cross-pollination of YouTube channels where a big YouTuber gets another big YouTuber and then they tap into another market. It's sort of, the way things are going, maybe taking less pressure off.
It's actually quite enjoyable. People like me have a fairly archaic view of this stuff, and we end up coming round to the ideas of it. I just think that a bit of it's cool. Like I'm nicking Ed Sheeran's idea for the collaborations thing. I'm going to do that.
So what's that? You were doing a collaboration.
I'm going to do collaborations alongside what I'm doing, sort of like as an arc, as like a separate subplot. There's going to be continuous kind of collaborative EPs. Just because I've got so much stuff that I write isn't for me, you know. 50% of the music I write doesn't really work for me at all. Like, because I don't have an agent, I don't have a manager, I don't have labels or deals or anything. Like, I can't get it to people. But it'd be good to. It's also, I'm learning now. There's the collaborative thing in that world. See, that's collaboration for creation. Though that's like getting together and making a fire with someone. You know, like. That's not, oh, we're going to take this guy's massive song because you've got no songs of your own, and we're going to make you the biggest star in the world.
Yeah, like a fusion.
Once you shake those hands, it's like when you go on the X Factor. I think every year I get asked to go on by some media company or something, The Voice. And I was one year I very nearly went and I didn't turn up because they contacted me and said, okay, you're going to go on The Voice. We can guarantee you'll get through to the live shows. You're going to be in the last. However many there are.
What, you mean these TV programmes are fake?
Yes,
faked in some way?
Yeah, they're faked and they know who's going to win. I've been told the winner of those shows before the shows have started by a friend of mine every year who works with the shows. So they're a load of rubbish. But one thing they are really good at is they're brilliant at marketing stuff. And there has been some good acts that have come through that model for sure. And I can see why artists do it, because the temptation to go, well, I can sing and get to millions of people. Still to this day, like people say to me, like, why don't you just go on one of those shows, sing, and people will hear you sing. In fact, there's a guy. I did a video thing in London, and there was a guy in the crowd who, I don't know who he was. He was an alright guy. He's nice enough, like, he wasn't sort of necessarily the type of person you would expect to be into my music. He was sort of a bit like, all right, mate. And he said to me, why don't you go on X Factor? And I was like, well, you know, I said, you know, once you do that, you've got to win it or nothing. Do you know what I mean? If I don't win a show like that, what's it for me? I can't go back and get the respect from, you know, the underground respect when I've jigged my ass on stage, like on TV.
Yeah.
And he said, but more people will hear you sing. And I had no comeback to that. It was like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Like, he's right. Like, millions of people can hear you sing in one night, or you can spend 30 years trying to get a few people to hear you sing. So in actual fact, he has got a complete point, and there's just something in me that stops me jumping over that thing. There's a trade-off.
I'd follow that gut reaction.
Yeah, I just couldn't do it. Some people work and fit in that model. And some people are great at that and they're perfect for that. But some people, I just would be cheating myself. I would rather fail my way.
And I wonder whether the audience that you get from doing that are the sort of audience that you'd want, you know? Like, it's a mainstream television programme on ITV.
I wrote a song with a guy that won one of those shows. And I said to him, I was brought into this behind enemy lines in one of these labels. They're the writing rooms, of course they do. And I was brought in, I wrote the song, and I brought it in, and I said, here's the song, you know. It was funny, and he said, I think he said to me, you're the only person that's been really direct to me. I said, enjoy this, you know, because it's going to go in about 2 years. You're screwed. You've either got to make a record, like, in the next 6 months, or start looking for a job, man, because I said, I'm not going to try and be negative, I'm just saying that, like, this thing you've done, winning a show like this, is great. All the Asda mums are going to love what you do, so make a record for these people and use it as a vehicle, but he wanted to make like Biffy Clyro stuff, or I don't know what he wanted to do.
The poetic.
Yeah, it's just like when you're going for that market, ain't going to be ready for you yet. Even like Robbie Williams had an arc. But I think the good thing about those shows is you get people like Will Young, who've got a great voice, and you get Leona Lewis. And there's a few people that suit the model completely, I think. But for the most part, I just see a lot of people that should just kind of go their own way really with it, put the time in, and kind of realise that there is no destination at all. It's only the steps. It's nothing. It's only the more. It's never the bricks.
Definitely, and going back to what you originally said right at the beginning about success, like I think when you're starting out, you visualize success as being this big block of time in your life that was like those years were successful, but it's not. It doesn't feel like that from my point of view, perhaps, because it's more like a transient moment of success, and then something happens and it's not great. So I think perception of success. And for people like that who win those sorts of programs, there's a huge spike of like success, but then a massive
it's
drop
really
down
bad on their mental health, man. Like,
exactly.
They really struggle, and they're not worse artists because they're going on a show like that. They're not less talented, and they're just more people hear you sing. You know what I mean? They got it right, and there's nothing wrong with that. And that's been delivered as the way you are an artist now. You go on a show like that. Why wouldn't you? It's not. Why would you spend years playing Spit and Sawdust places? But I think that success is the paradigms of success. It's a funny relationship between creators and this moment of success. And I've really struggled with it. I've had a lot of people over the years ask me, sort of manager types say, what is success though? What is success? I'm like, well, of course, success is playing at Glastonbury. It's having millions of fans. It's having the ability to continually make records. It's having a fan base that exists of people that you don't know all their names. It's it's obviously you're a successful act and you're kind of a well-known act. That is, to me, is what a successful act is. But it isn't what a successful person is. It's not what a successful creative person is. And I think nowadays, like, the success is the steps, the success is the process. That's the reward. It's never... The end game's not important. Look at Ed Sheeran. He looks like a depressed guy, man. Doesn't look like a happy geezer. Like, he probably is perfectly fine, and I'm sure. But he's really worked a long time. He's toured and done all that stuff. So all power to what he's done. But it's the idea that selling loads of records, headlining Glastonbury, doing those things is enough to somehow wrangle those ghosts inside him.
Yeah.
I don't think it is
totally
enough.
resolved.
I don't think it is enough. And I think, to me, like, people like David Gray and Damien Rice and David Ford and a lot of Davids. Anyone called David, basically. But even Gervais, look at Ricky Gervais. He didn't have any major successes at all until very late in life.
Yeah.
And Noel Gallagher was a lot older before he really had any. But before Noel Gallagher was obviously signed to a creation, became Oasis. He was still massively successful. He was the roadie for the Spiral Carpets, touring the world. Living it up, doing what he wants to do. He was working in building sites in between and doing that. But my point is that success isn't about the paradigms of it have changed. It's not. It isn't about what it used to be about. I find just as much success in connecting with people and inspiring people, and people telling me like this song, or just having friends, just like being able to get a coffee with a mate and to be able to live your life, jobs recently, and I've just sort of curtailed a lot of them because I just thought this is absurd. They nearly got to double figures how many jobs I had, and I was doing that from trying to get enough money to mix my record. That was what I was doing that. But in doing that, I worked in a school, sort of talking and helping out these kids senior school, these kids that kind of were being forgotten and lost in the cracks of the school system, which is awful. school system in this country is terrible, especially as academy schools. And these kids, especially one I had connected with, he was such a talented artist, man, such a talented mind, much more. He's got so much going for him, you know. And another kid who made music as well, who I connected with, but that was one of the most successful things I've done, you know, just being able to remotely just show them, just see them sort of smile, you know, and laugh and to tell them, this is not that, school's not that important, mate. Do you know what I mean? Don't worry about it. You'll be fine. You know what I mean?
And the gratification of them maybe opening up. Have you ever done community music work?
Yeah, I did a bit of it. That was felt like that, to be honest.
Yeah, it's really gratifying.
I did this this year. One of the most rewarding things I did was this walk. I did a walk for I actually did it for me, and then I decided to bring a charity in. So I did it for Rocking Horse in Brighton. Do like a children's charity that do things for like children's hospitals, like a Great Ormond Street, but like for babies in Brighton, you know. And I did a walk. I walked from like it was 250 miles,
coast to coast.
Yeah,
wasn't it?
coast to coast. And I raised 1,500 or something. But just to sort of see where it's going to go to help inspire these kids with the music department they can have and things like that. And I'm going to go in and help them work with that stuff and sort of do some like things like that. And even when I do tours, I try to sort of get involved with that stuff because there's nothing more rewarding than that, man. Like, you know, you play Notting Hill Arts Club, you headline Notting Hill Arts Club. There's no success in that. Like, the place stinks. It's in a horrible sort of basement. It's full of grumpy kind of promoters and people handing out stupid business cards. I say this is another thing. These gigs now have become two forms. So you've got the people that want to be there, which are amazing, and I connect with those people. And then you've got all these kind of Z-list, not even industry people. Like they're people that like have a lot of money so they can afford to kind of just loaf about handing out cards. And they usually come at you, oh, I've got a label, I've got this. And you think, oh, come on, man. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't need this. No one needs this. Like, it's sort of self-gratifying.
Yeah.
It clogs up the thing because behind all that you feel like you're saying, look mate, I ain't got any money, so you know there's no point in talking to me about anything because managers only want to manage you if they can make a load of money out of monthly amount of money. PR people want $2,000 a month, like radio people want money, like, and that's no problem because they're in an industry too, they've got to earn money and they've been hit by the changes of the industry just the same as we have. But it does create, they provide a service, and when you provide a service to a demographic of hungry, desperate artists that maybe go through periods of time where they feel down and like they're not getting anywhere, and they feel like if you just pay this, I'm going to be able to get PR, and if you just get a bit of radio, I'm just going to do this, I'm just going to do that. Before you jump through those hoops, you get to the end of it, you're destroyed, and you've got 10 years of paying back credit cards and debt, and you try making records then, you know, there is a reality to that side of it that really costs people more than money, but it really costs people their sort of mind, you know, because there's a chasing, a desperation.
Yeah, you've got to
if they've got to be able to see the successes that are in front of them, the real things that really matter, and that is these shows, that is the people that care, it's the individuals, the photographers that come out every night to take pictures and just to support the scene, you know. It's the sound guys, it's the people you meet, it's the whole thing, and to be honest, that is the most rewarding part of the success. And as long as you focus on that, you can't
in those
lose
things, I think is an important part, isn't it?
You've got to be prepared to fail. Like if you have this paradigm of failure, you've got to be prepared to, because we all know like you're going to fail a lot more times than you're going to succeed.
Yeah, and that's the learning process. It's like you don't really learn when you're really good. That you can have something that went really, really well. You're like, I don't know how that happened, but when when things go wrong, you know, you can go, it was because of this. It's a massively important learning process.
It is
to be not successful for a while. You mentioned David Ford there. I was trying to remember his name because I played football with him in Eastbourne for ages. Yeah. And someone was like, he's a bit of a singer-songwriter, David. And he's a fucking good footballer too. He was like one of the really better players.
Play football.
And I sort of Googled him and I was like, holy fuck, he's great.
You should try and do an interview with him, man. He's literally like, he'd be brilliant. I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, because
he's
really good friends with the guys in Eastbourne, isn't he?
Because he comes from that scene in Eastbourne. So I toured with him in It was towards the end of my deal with. It was just before I vanished. Really, it was one of the things that made me kind of vanish. But I did a tour. I had a manager at the time who was very good at getting deals and not very good at doing much else. Mm-hmm. So he got me the deal, and I'm eternally grateful for that. You know, for getting the deal in the first place. And then he wasn't that great. And then I ended up getting a different manager, a guy called Paul Samuels. I think he managed Raconteurs and he managed Brendan Benson. I think it wasn't Raconteurs. He managed Brendan Benson out of the Raconteurs. Right. And then so anyway, he was just brought in by the label to sort of caretaker manager type thing. They paid him a retainer. But one of the things he really did, which was great, was good. He got me in I was with an agent. I had a booking agent at that time, and they got me. They got me on this David Ford tour, and I was like, I didn't really know much about David Ford at the time. So I went and did this tour with him, and it was so amazing. You know, it's just wow, what a great artist. Just the way, and he blew me off stage, man, every night. And that was the last time anyone's done that. Do you know what I mean? I'm not trying to say that from an arrogant point of view, but I've never let that happen again. You know, it's never going to happen again unless I'm, you know, playing with the caliber of artist that I really truly respect, because he really just absolutely taught me something about live music, and it was painful to me to play those shows because I knew that I was getting the performance bit kind of right, but I was very in a dark place. Like I was getting the performance thing kind of right, but the songs I was playing were rubbish. You know, the first song I played, I mean, I wouldn't blow my nose with it now. It was a rubbish song, but the performance of the song was more enigmatic than the the song itself. And I had a little drum machine. It was just a pretty crappy performance from my point of view. But he was so on it. This was the time of his first record, and his band were great. And it was like a absolute. I made a mental note. Right, okay, this is where I've got to get to. If it's not at this point, and I'm talking about as a singer, like he's not like Celine Dion or something. Do you know what I mean? It's just his presence and how much of a heart on the sleeve he was. His record, you know, his records. He was a real artist in that respect, and it was just like this guy. And he remember towards the end of the thing. This is funny because it's the reason I'm playing Dingwalls, actually, because the last time I played Dingwalls, I supported David Ford in 2006, and I didn't play very well. I was really busy, but I was just like realised at that point, you know what, this is the last day of the tour. This guy's got it going on, and I'm just not in a good place. And he bought me really sweet sort of thing that I now know is part of touring etiquette. If you're supporting someone, a headline band will buy the support band a record that they love. And he bought me Blue Shoes, I think, Blue Valentine by Tom Waits, who he's a big fan of. And he bought me that, and it was really touching because I hadn't really hung out with him. Like I was hung out with his band, like Francis and a few other people, but I didn't really. He's quite an old guy to hang out with, so he's not the sort of guy you're just going to go and hang out with. They were really accommodating, but it's just I was probably just a bit of a weird guy anyway at that time. But he headlined Dingwalls, and I supported him, and I made a mental note that one day I'm going to come back here when I'm ready as a real artist, and I'm going to do the same. So that it's funny now that it was the reason I booked Dingwalls as the crowning kind of point of this arc, you know, because my album will be out by the 17th of July next year. It'll be the album launch of that. But it's a really important thing because if I cannot get real fans, like not just the fans I have now, but I'll add to that through different mediums and different ways of connecting with people. If I can't make enough people trip over it, then that show will just be half empty, and that's fine. If that's where it's at, it's at. But the gig's going to happen regardless.
It's great to go full circle. And
it is, yeah, and I like to
overcome that.
Rectify these things, and that's what each date has been a specific emotional reason why I'm playing that specific venue. I played Betsy Trotwood, the tiny venue when I first got a deal and stuff, and it's this kind of full circle thing and rectifying it. Making sure that, so when I come off that stage, it's like, right, great, now it's the next, you know, how do I get from here to the Scala? How do I get from the Scala to Union Chapel? How do I get from Union Chapel to the Roundhouse? How do I I need to get an agent, you know, I genuinely need a team. Like, there's not that any agents that are out there that are going to pay any attention, but I'm in a band as well, right? I'm in a band called Goldbirds, and we not recently, a few years ago, before the band kind of changed again for the millionth time, we got very close to getting book an agent. We had the heads of the biggest agencies out there, and they're all about 70, the heads of these agencies. And they did a showcase that cost us 400 or 500 quid to put together. It was a big, expensive studio, you know, and they loved it, man. And they said, oh, it's just amazing, you know, unbelievable. They sent down the heads of their A&R people, who are obviously younger and more kind of they have a
finger on the pulse.
Yeah, finger on the pulse. And they said, yeah, you're an amazing band, man. Like, this is one of the best things I've heard in years. And I would never sign it. We don't take on people we like or we think are great. You haven't got a buzz online. We're like, yeah, but we're gonna be fans. We're like, I know. Like,
isn't that good though? I think you can persuade them into signing you because of that reason.
Yeah.
Look, okay, what we'll do is we'll get off the internet. That would be a good move. Like, we'll get off it so people can't find us. Like, if I see a band live and I can't find their music online, I am desperate to hear it.
You've got to go to the shows. Yeah, you've got to go to the shows. I went the opposite way and just sat there and said, I said he should be sacked. I said, mate, with all due respect, you know, you should be fired because your job is to discover acts.
Yeah.
And anyone that sees our band is going to be converted.
Exactly.
So therefore, we're a band that's going to break live. So you should be taking us on. And you just told me that you wouldn't even come and see a band that came from London and things like that. You won't sign a band because you like me. I said, you're in a position of power, you should be fired. And it's not because you're passing on my band or me or whatever. You're wrong anyway about that. But it's because you won't. It's because there's a load of bands out there right now that can't afford that PR engine that are brilliant. And the fact is that half the problem is that industry types like you turn around and say you're not getting involved because there's not these stats that can be bought and faked anyway. So
exactly.
It's
I reckon it's not necessarily his opinion or his point of view. It's like
it's his rules.
It's the product of
he's right
of
you know.
what he's around.
Yeah.
But what you could say to him in that situation is, look, you can make a change here. You can be different in your approach. If all of your mates are not signing people because they haven't got an online following but they fucking love the music, why don't you be different? Why don't you sign to people who have got no following and show everyone else that doesn't?
They're the tastemakers. Actually, they do. They. He said, "Oh, you don't understand. There is no gatekeepers." So yes, there is.
There are, of course.
There's gatekeepers, and you have the power to stop following this narrow path of stats. If you want the stats and you want the buzz, fine, we'll come back. And that's what I'm doing now. I'm going to get these things, but I'm going to earn them. But it's not going to. I wouldn't be signing to him anyway.
Yeah, definitely not.
But I get it. We're all in the same. We're all in the same place.
I know it's a little bit like that for the Great Escape here in Brighton. I know that if you don't have a few online accounts, that they're straight away not interested in you, which sort of connects David Ford and the studio in Eastbourne a bit, because Phil. Do you know Phil Nelson, who set up the Great Escape?
I don't know him actually. No, I don't. I did play Great Escape a while back, but it was, I again in quote marks. I mean, I'm playing Great Escape. What actually that means, just for the layman, is that I'm paying a PR agent £600 a month, and they're putting me on some crap gig to a bunch of Z-listers that are putting it in their diary for the day. Because really, it's just a big hangout for industry guys to join and drink beer all day.
Yeah, people have said.
I know I sound cynical, but it is. I'm not trying to sound cynical. I'm just trying to. There's not enough people just talking it like it is for the reality of the people that are. We're all out there doing it. We're all kind of creators. We all kind of know, and it's not negative. It's just there's a reality to these things. It's not this idea. Someone said to me recently, "Oh, I can get you on I don't know, some festival. I think it was like Tea in the Park. One of the ones that Isle of Wight. That was it. Isle of Wight festival."
Oh, nice.
Right, that's great, but I'll play there when I've got fans to play there. Do you know what I mean? Like, I want to play there because there's a demand for me to play there, not just because a connection got me in. And I know I have some really weird morals that really get in the way of my own success. But it's just I can't help it, man. I just have to. I should just jump at these things. This is why having a manager's good, because they just deal with that.
exactly, yeah. And I know people who've been in bands and they've said, if you lose the bassist, we'll sign you, or if you know, like lose the fat guy.
Yeah.
And then you've got like the brand image.
And you're like, what do you mean? I am this fat guy. You're like, I'm just going to find myself. No, it is a weird thing. It's funny. I try now to ignore a lot of that stuff because unfortunately, I come from that period. If you talk to a lot of people from the generation I come from, we remember what it was like before. We remember that kind of things. We're kind of looking at these things and thinking, okay, well. There was a time when director of Chrysalis, Alison Donald at the time, said, "Oh yeah, we only sign people." This was when MySpace was starting up. We only sign people now that have over 5,000 MySpace friends. I just thought, what the hell are you talking about? You know, you're a publishing company. I just think this failing. I know why, because it creates an ecosystem of hunger where everyone's kind of, oh, I can't back the wrong horse. I've got to make sure all my things are lined up. But it can, unfortunately, create a manipulation where you start paying for like YouTube views and you start trying to get your streams up. You start trying to do this and you start trying to think, okay, well, what I need now is this new hoop arrives. What I need now is a load of Spotify playlists. And what I need now is this. And what I need now, it's like, look, I've got news for you. What you need is all of it. What we all need is an engine. We need record deals, and we need people with money, and we need people to finance what we're doing. But really, taking all that away, actually, what we need is just to be enjoying what we're doing and writing good songs,
good
and being
music,
being good. Yeah, because
that's the main.
That's
thing.
the most important thing.
The
like
big checkbox.
And I think it does get
good music?
It gets ignored because we're so focused on chasing these tick lists of things. I was looking on. I'm sort of shouting down a lot of people that may or one day be interested in me, but so I was looking on AWOL's tick list of things. AWOL is artists without a label thing, right? Artists without a label, that's what it stands for, right?
I see.
And there's a tick list to kind of get in with them. And the tick list is like definition of being a big act.
Mm-hmm.
What you need is all this stuff you need, and then we'll look at you. I just think, you know what, that's ridiculous. You know, it's like, come on. I can get that stuff songs. And I can be rubbish. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, or I can not have that stuff and be good. So to sort of almost have a checklist of saying don't get in touch unless you have these things.
Yeah, it's not that formulaic.
It's bizarre. It's like, it should be about the music, really.
Exactly. I remember what I was going to say about Phil Nelson. So you were saying about a manager would put you in a position where they'd make you do stuff perhaps out of your comfort zone that was maybe you didn't think it was going to be good, and they have the oversight to go, actually, I know this is going to be good for you. So yeah, Phil Nelson was the manager of a few different bands, and he had a thing called the Joker card that he was able to play like once a year or something.
Wow, okay.
So he would demand that they played a gig, and it would be his call, and they couldn't get out of it. It was his Joker card that he was allowed to do, to say, you're going to play this gig, I know it's going to be good for you. And even if there was like, I can't remember, it was the guy from Aqualung he was talking to try and get him to play a gig in Japan, and he was like maybe struggling with some family issues.
Yeah.
And but yeah, Phil played his Joker card, and it ended up being like a really, really beneficial thing.
Wow.
So I think having a manager that's has a creative role there.
Massively important.
Clinical.
And thinking like that, I kind of. The managers I've had, like the people that took me on, I've had like 25 managers, something crazy. I've had more managers than Chelsea, and when you've had that many, you start to realise the problem's you know. But
and the solution.
Yeah, the solution's me, and the problem's me, and the managers I've had taking me on because they knew they could get a deal with a specific person, so they're kind of thinking like that. They're like, okay, I know this person I know is going to buy it, so they'll put you on a show. I need you to play this show, I need you to do this sort of thing. But it's that kind of, having that help with managerial stuff is really like massively important, I think. Like,
definitely.
But I do think that it's kind of, the more I want it, and I need those things. You know, I haven't got, as I said, I haven't got a manager, I haven't got an agent, I haven't got record deals, publishing deals, nothing. People think that I have. I think a lot of people that follow my music think that I'm signed or something. I have my own label, my own little crappy label, which in today's world means I've got font book, you know, I can create a logo on font book and that's my company.
Mm-hmm.
So a record label now is just a specific way of writing, like a typeface, you know. So I have a really good typeface for the words Dead Rabbit, so that's my label. And I put things out into that, but I don't have any of that stuff, but I don't worry about it as much as I used to. I do get sort of a bit kind of fed up of spending most of my days doing like the admin side of things rather than writing.
Yeah.
And I miss having a team of people that can help with stuff, because
push things forward.
Push things forward. But you know, if I was willing to pay like a manager, like most managers now will only do it for money. Like really, there's very few that will put in. It takes 2 or 3 years to break an act, you know, really from the ground up.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of work to ask a manager to put in for nothing.
Definitely.
So they rightly so they ask for something that they can sustain themselves with. Problem is that they're asking that from someone who hasn't got it, you know, half the time. So it's not just them, but the whole industry is like that, set up in a very price structured way. I definitely think I've made that point a few times in this podcast that classism within music in the independent scene has become really like defined. It doesn't get talked about at all.
Mm-hmm.
But like I'd say 90% of the artists that I know have either rich parents or are well off, or they have a team, they have a manager, they have this person, that person, or they're paying them. Of course they have them. Like I can have those things if I pay them,
mm-hmm.
but where's the money going to come from?
Yeah.
How do you afford to live in the middle of London and pay a team, and you're trying to tell me you're a struggling artist? Come on, like, you know,
some people
like
do have
there's a
privilege.
difference. Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with having privilege. There's nothing wrong with having support, but I don't know therefore why it's hidden away. Like, but you know what I mean?
It's not cool.
It's not cool, I suppose, is it? But it shouldn't be hidden away. Right. It should just be called what it is. It's great to have those things. It's great to have the support network in whichever way, even if it's emotional support. It's great to have that. But what it does, and it isn't the fault of the person who's got the money. It isn't the fault of their circumstance. But what a knock-on effect from those things is an ecosystem around the industry, like a kind of bubble, starts to create where there's money to be made. So there's PR companies and these radio people, all these kind of people can charge a monthly fee to these people because there is money there.
Mm-hmm.
But what happens to that 10%? What happens to like the 10% that can't afford that? Well, I'll tell you what happens to the 10% that can't afford that. They can't afford the PR, they can't afford this, they can't afford that. So they struggle on themselves. 5% of those, 50% of that 10% will quit because they get so depressed that they're so like, I've been doing this 20 years, my life's going down the pan, I can't do this anymore, and they quit, and fair enough to them, you know. Then that leaves like the remaining 5%, and that's kind of where I sit. The people that are so either deluded or determined, and I think there's a thin line, maybe they come a bit both, a healthy dollop of both is probably helpful. But absolutely 1,000,000% determined to not succeed in that way of success that we see it, but actually to connect. And they start to realise, you know what, it's inward. My songs are the only things that are there before and the only things that are going to be there after.
Mm-hmm.
And people liking those songs and connecting with humans and connecting with people on that level and playing shows and collecting an audience. But it's when you have that, we're us 5%, we realise that we've probably got 5 or 6 years of doing it like this, these steps all the way before we start to see any significant sort of signs of what the paradigms of success would be to sustain. But sustainability is a really hard, tricky thing, I think, for all of us. Us 5%, it's really expensive to make records. It's really expensive to mix, to make videos, to distribute, to pay PRs, pay radio, to pay management. So radio management, PR goes straight out the window. You can't do that. So you have to try and get it different ways.
I would maybe try and look at how can it be done without those massive upfront fees. Without that, could that 20 grand be reduced to 2 grand?
Yeah, I think it can, and I actually think it can be done the minute you start to stop thinking big and start to think small and appreciate the steps, appreciate the process. That's kind of why I walked away from it before. It's because I had to fall in love with the process again. Because I lived with the process. I didn't live with this moment, this destination. I lived with the process. And if you don't enjoy that process, if you don't love that process and understand it, you can't go through the emotional roller coasters that it provides, you have to love the process. So to me, there is no making it. I've already made it in my head, because it's there's people that love my music, and that's, you know, and there's people that connect with what I'm doing, and there's people I connect with that love what they're doing. And David Ford, bringing it back to him, you know, he's still doing it. I think he wrote a book, I think it's something like how to be unsuccessful. I think it's called something like How to Be Unsuccessful in the Music Industry or something like that.
And enjoy it.
It was like, because he's had a million deals and he's been up and down, but he's still doing it, because when he closes the door, his music's still there for him. And I think that these are the artists that I respect. And you know, I know there's a lot of PR. Unfortunately, there is a downside, which is the PR and lobbying that's promoted the idea of the independent artist, like the idea that grime just comes out of nowhere. Like, come on, 5 years before grime was huge, these artists were all topping the gospel charts. They were all winning MOBO awards. It's gospel movement dressed up as grime, but it's gospel music, and part of the paradigms and the laws of that world of gospel music is that the supporters support it. You know, a little bit like a kind of punk crowd support hardcore punk bands, and blues is, people go to folk festival to see folk music. They don't go to see certain acts or blues festivals. You don't get that for contemporary music. You don't get that for like rock and roll. You're going to know what bands. You want to know what bands are playing if you're going to waste time in a field. You know, but people go to, you know, these things is a little bit like they go to that. So gospel is a movement, and it's not really a movement, but musically the people that listen to it and support it are supporting the whole message of what it stands for.
Yeah. And
what it stands for is harmony and connection with people and stuff. So, but there's a lot of this idea. When I'm talking about, like, there's a lot. If you see these interviews on like BBC Breakfast News where they talk about, isn't it amazing that live music's doing so well? Yeah, it's doing great. That's why music venues are closing down every month.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's doing so well that, you know, 12 Bar Club has to close its doors. Borderline has to close its doors. Like, notorious venues that have been successful for 50 years are closing their doors.
Yeah,
that's how well it's doing.
The high street is a similar thing. I think online has just taken over all of our lives.
It has, and I think that live, the big live acts are doing fine. Yeah, but it's there are paradigms. The BBC Sound of 2000. I think the BBC Sound of 2015 or something was Sam Smith or someone like that, who previously, the previous year and a half before, had already had 4 number ones featuring on the biggest acts out there. It's like there's an idea that we as an unsigned people can easily just walk straight into the mainstream of music, which is just not true. I mean, and I think the problem is the reason I made that point is that there is a point for, say, an independent act, a band or whatever, there's a point when they realise that it's not that straightforward. That really messes with their heads, their money, messes with their bank accounts, their personal living situations, their relationships. It's hard on their girlfriends and their boyfriends, and it's hard on their families. And it really, they're thinking, well, this is how it's meant to be. It didn't work for us, so maybe we're terrible. Or maybe we're just wasting our lives.
Maybe we're doing it wrong.
Maybe we're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
And then, oh, wait a minute though. If I pay for this PR person, I pay for this, or I pay for that. That's what we should be doing. And the more you jump through those hoops, the more you realise that there's an infrastructure out there that's born to create new hoops. Mm-hmm. You can't jump through any of these hoops. You have to build it from the ground. And the truth is, it is every single grain of sand. It's not the whole. It's not this kind of waltzing forth idea of going global. You know.
Yeah.
Unless you're like 14 and you're like Justin Bieber or something.
Yeah, rare cases are definitely exceptions. But yeah, I think growing a natural audience and having people that are genuinely interested and that connect on your live shows is the most important thing. Like you say, the success is the journey and enjoying that journey, and whatever comes from you. The weird thing about success is that you never choose for it to happen. You can't control whether it happens or not. It just happens to you from other people's response to what you're doing. So if your objective is to be successful, it's very unlikely.
And it also gives you this idea. It's perception. It's all perception. It's how you perceive the good things that happen to you or the bad things that happen to you. If a lot of bad stuff happens to you, doesn't mean you're awful or you're a bad person. It just means you're a human, you know.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with that. It's how you interpretate the world, and it's how you talk about it and how you interpret what you're doing. And I think that you have to feel like what you're doing is great, and that's we were talking about Dom earlier, Dom Morley, and the stuff he's done over his life. You know, he's an artist. You know, that's how I see it. Chris Potter's an artist. These producers and these people, but they've had to sort of weather the storm. You know, they've had to change their way of working.
Definitely.
You know, they're not making money from the same places, so they have to get creative. But you know, some of them they're in a very similar situation. Do I quit or do I carry on? But they carry on and persevere because their job is what their job is. That's what they do. You know.
Yeah, they love doing it.
Yeah.
So, are you looking for people to collaborate with on your next record?
Yeah. Well, I mean, for the EPs, yeah. Like on my records, I'm still kind of making most of them myself. So this third album will be the first record I've self-produced completely. It's been mixed by Chris, and but yeah. So I'm always looking for people to collaborate with now because I enjoy the process, but I did a poster. I think I had so many people. I had like 70 people or something put themselves forward, which is amazing. So I've got enough for like 78 bloody EPs now. So I'm gonna do the guy that's just gonna directly nick Sheeran's idea with that and just keep putting out these things.
He didn't invent collaboration.
He didn't invent collaboration,
No.
did he? But I think he'd like to think he probably did. He definitely invented a lot of things. In fact, he didn't, did he? You know, that loop thing was being done by Kate Tunstall way before.
Yeah, no, the loop. I mean, he got good at. I mean, he's very good at using a loop pedal, but he certainly didn't invent the loop pedal.
Yeah, I got a loop pedal, and the first thing I ever did with it, I could only create world music. So if I ever go down that thing,
That's great.
I use a little bit of a loop pedal live, but I don't actually use it as a loop pedal. I use it as a kind of soundscape thing. But yeah, I think the good thing about collaboration for me is it's like collaborating with all sorts of people, not even in a musical sense, just like collaborating with artists live and doing stuff. I'm really enjoying that spider's web of it all. And I'm just realising that that's just as rewarding. And supporting the people that are out there, you know. The spot gigs are fun as well, just doing these little things, because I get to meet 5 or 6 artists straight away, you know. I get to sort of hook up with them and do stuff, but I'd like to do more collaborative things, so there'll be a collaboration EP alongside the record, I imagine.
And are you looking for to get out of your comfort zone maybe with some of the collaborations?
Yeah, well, I tell you what, I mean, that's another thing we haven't really even touched on, but this record I've just made, it's going to alienate a lot of people. It's very out of my comfort zone. If you're aware of any of my music from before, this record's nothing like it.
That's good.
This record's like there's no guitars really on this record. It's mostly beats and it's mostly synths and it's mostly
wow.
It's an electronic record. It's a sort of it sounds more like a kind of cross between Radiohead and Sia, that sort of vibe, you know.
Excellent.
It's probably the poppiest thing I've done, but it's also quite left field, very different. So I don't know even if my audience will like it, and I don't really care. You know, I do these things because I want to create the music for me. You know, and my circumstances at the time defined that I had to make a record without a studio, so I had to use beats and loops and samples and stuff because I couldn't afford to go into a studio. So this record does that. So the EPs will definitely push that even further, you know. And I kind of know I'm kind of weird. I've got the next 5 albums written, so like the album I do after this change is called Drunk, and it's going to be sort of more of a Bon Iver-esque, sort of more soulful, a bit more acoustic, but with that electro thing thrown in, like Imogen Heap kind of vibe.
Oh, cool.
And then the album after that's called Beautiful Struggle, which is will be the 5th album, which is more of a soul, sort of more soulful record, more sort of played. So they're the next 5.
That's amazing. I don't know anyone who's planned that many albums ahead.
Yeah, I know what I'm doing in 2022, 2023, yeah. So
that's good.
I've got it all planned out. I know what I'm doing when I'm doing it, and there's a lot of records basically. Strangely for me, there's not a lot, because I write so much, there's not a lot of... I wish I could make a record and write it now. So Drunk, it's going to be focused on quite a dark period in my childhood, so it's going to be made in that way where I've left a lot of it to be written whilst I record it. So that'll be recorded live, a lot of that.
Maybe it'd be interesting to get those Fisher-Price toys back.
I'm going to get them
and
back,
use them
yeah.
for the album.
Well, that's most of my instruments now are Fisher-Price, unfortunately, yeah.
Charity shop keyboards.
They've got worse and worse.
I'm the same, man. Cool, it's been great to talk to you.
Yeah, thanks so much, man. I love what you're doing. I love the podcast. I love anyone we're all kind of doing the same thing. We're basically exploring the human condition and putting it out there. I'm sure I'll see you on the comedy scene with me in 20 years. We'll both be doing that
dying
scene.
On stage. We'll be dying on stage.
You'll be saying, it was funny or not. Well, it turns out.
Cool, yeah.
Thanks loads, man.
Yeah, cheers, man. It's been nice to speak to you.
Great.
Nice one.
Cool.
Really good to speak to Si. He's a really talented singer and clearly someone who's had a lot of life experience and things to overcome, like we all have. And he's still going at it and still making music and planning his albums and work far into the future. Okay, next month, I don't know who we're talking to. You might have noticed there's like a 2-month gap between the last 2 podcasts. There will be future podcasts, but for the time being, I don't know who's next. We'll find out together, won't we? Okay, thank you very much for listening. My name's midierror. I'll